cash crisis worse. Talking about Venezuela once again.
Systemic important banks. They removed the 1,000 tools that they wanted called monetary awareness. All right, we are connected for the Monday edition of the News Update. And as always, looking forward to connecting, man, and sharing my 2 cents on what's happening and how it's becoming more and more clear that the U.S. and Bessent is just BS in the American people. But then again, if it moves the market and give a smidgen of hope to open up the week, why not do it? So I'm going to share my 2 cents on a couple of things here. Of course, definitely love to check in with you guys and get your thoughts. So feel free to let me know what you're keeping your eyes on, and we will move through this. And a lot of things on my mind, a lot of things that I want to discuss. And I'm going to try to do it in a short and quick manner. But for those who are plugged in, let me know if my audio is coming in good. Shoot me a thumbs up if you don't mind, so that I know that I'm not talking to myself, and that'll help me get going. And so definitely for those who are plugged in, let me know where you're watching from as well. I definitely love to give you a shout out. It's been a minute since I've done a direct live stream, and so trying to get back in the swing of things. Lots of things happening on my side, so it makes it complicated as a one-man team. But I will do the best I can to connect, just because as I take all this in, there's so many angles of which I can approach these discussions here based upon all my research and just all the stuff that algorithms are feeding me. It makes it, it can be very complicated. But so I try to keep it centered around what you see right here on the screen, which is the Federal Reserve note and the problems that the U.S. faces as, the White House continues to gaslight the American people, all with the idea of the Strait of Hormuz. We've given it permission to open. Oh, okay. Uh, there's lots of other additional evidence to prove that to be a complete lie. So we're going to talk about that a lot more. But appreciate you. We got William. Appreciate you says good. We got Rose says good. Okay, 5 by 5. Counting the day. Okay. Appreciate you guys, man. Let's just jump into it. So came across a headline, which really sparked the idea of connecting and sharing my 2 cents, just because if I don't share my 2 cents on it, my concern would be that there might be some people who might stumble across it and be like, oh, okay, things are looking favorable for the U.S. Oh, we're good. This, Operation Fury or whatever they call it now is working. But once again, there's no predetermined or there's no determined outcome that has been given to the American people that would give us a sense of confidence that this is actually going to produce something worthwhile. And that's one of the biggest lies that I think this government can get away with. So what up, Emmanuel? We got Emmanuel from Detroit. Appreciate you, man. Okay, so I'm gonna share this headline here, which is what caught my attention, and then we will just jump into some other activities, because as a result of the headlines, or along with the headlines, it has the markets somewhat, in the green, and of course, oil prices drop temporarily. And so it says U.S. is allowing Iranian oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, says Bessent. And so this is from a interview that he conducted. And when I saw that, I'm like, allowing? So here we are, 6,000 plus miles away, and the U.S. is allowing. Of course, this is the best effort they can do to try to pump markets for this week. But if anybody was foolish enough to believe this, then obviously they will be not too informed to the bigger picture of how this is literally these are the beginning phases of what will be considered as the Great Reset, perhaps centered around the current dollar usage in the global monetary structure, and the world's energy, especially moving forward, being priced in alternatives outside of the Federal Reserve note. So I'll just real quick thumb and give you some of the stuff that's been given to us here. But as it says here, it says Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told CNBC that the U.S. is allowing Iranian oil tankers to Strait of Hormuz. So we are allowing them. Okay, yeah. So if we've let that happen to supply the rest of the world, Bessent said, says tanker traffic through the strait has plunged as Islamic Republic attacks commercial ships in the Persian Gulf. It says oil prices have surged in response since the start of the war. And so here you go, just him trying to, I guess, basically blatantly lie to the American people. And then as a result of these types of narratives here, this is what we're looking at here. So on the screen, you can see literally as a result of the fake narrative, the oil price is down slightly. And so as you can see, it was trending back towards that $100 mark. And within a fake narrative being given to the people through the media, it has brought it down, as it says here. How much was that? It says it brought it down 3.5%. So in the last 24 hours, as you can see here, there's been a 3.5% decrease in the change of price. And so this is enough to open up the Monday markets and make people feel optimistic that this is working, that this military conflict or whatever it's called is working. But then again, there's more to the story, because while we have the Bessent narrative, which I call bluff, I call bullcrap, there's another little narrative that comes from a former White House individual. And I was like, okay, so that narrative there definitely gives much more light and insight as to what is really happening. And then you look at X, especially, there's so many different video footages from a variety of sources. So take it with a grain of salt, but it shows a much different reality of what's really happening in that strait there. So clearly by now, everybody realized that the strait is the it is the ultimate determinant of how the U.S. economy functions from here on out. And so when you see gas prices around the country trending upward, they've already decided to supply some of the oil reserves. And once again, as I mentioned before, it's more so this is this can be and will be a long drawn out event by Iran and their allies, because literally they have the ability to withstand pressure from the U.S. Because I think at this current moment, we're starting to see that the military industrial complex, they have influence, but not enough to really shake out and shake up the Middle Eastern oil hegemony that's been priced in $1, especially when you have China and Russia, I would assume, backing the Iranian, regime, or whatever you want to call them. So that makes it very challenging for the U.S. to continue to put pressure on a region of which we don't have as much control or say so in that area as we used to years and years ago. So you're going to see more fake headlines, more fake news, more fake media trying to tell us that things are good on this end. But all you got to do is just look at the pump. All you got to do is look at the overall cost around you, as things will continue to trend upward, because there's always going to be that lagging indicator of the issues in the logistical system, as well as the energy space and all the things that come from oil. And yeah, it's not going away at all. So clearly, as it says here, jawbone of the economy, 100%. Okay, so I want to share with you a little 60-minute clip that I came across that gives more truth into what we are really experiencing. And so let me bring this on the screen here. So I'll play this. So this is from somebody from QE Infinity. Posted and says, former White House energy advisor says there's nothing we can do to open the Strait of Hormuz. And so his comment is, what are we going to do? And so just listen to this. And from this, you get a much different sense of reality other than what the headlines just showed us based upon what Bessent tried to, spew out there. So take a listen to this. If I can get it
I worked in the White House during an energy crisis. There are no policy solutions to a prolonged closure of the Strait of Hormuz.
You're saying there's not much a White House, a president can do to stop this bleeding.
You open up the toolkit, and the tools in there, the options range from marginal through symbolic to deeply unwise. Escorts are a sideshow. Strategic stock releases are a sideshow.
Gas tax holiday?
Gas tax holiday, sideshow. You got to restore the flow of the Strait of Hormuz.
Even if the White House, President Trump, declared an end of this war today, tomorrow, is there any guarantee that Iran would open up the strait and it's back to business as usual?
No guarantee. It's not like there's a big gate that swings open in front of the Hormuz and Iran locks the gate. So all Iran has to do is demonstrate every day, every other day, that it has the means and the ability to attack ships in the strait, and that will be enough.
Okay, so there you have a much different narrative other than what Bessent is telling us, that they gave the Iran permission to open up the strait. Right. Okay, so he listed three things there that are all jawbony. It's all, it's all a facade, like things that just don't really matter. So you can escort the ships through with the U.S. military, it doesn't work. You can unrelease the gas tax, it doesn't work. You can open up reserves, it doesn't work. Unless the Iranian people decide that they will allow it to flow freely and uninterrupted, we are all just still in a very problematic environment. And so once again, let me share with you some other things that show a much different story. And so here's a video here. And so this came out 15 hours ago. And so I'm just going to thumb through some of these things and let you know what is circulating in the internet. So here we have from Shattering Hegemony. It says breaking video of burning ships on the Strait of Hormuz have gone viral on Chinese social medias. And so here, this appears to be a video captured from a cell phone, I assume, and it shows a ship burning in a body of water. So whether it's Strait of Hormuz, who knows? But, and that's where this current environment, anything could be fake with AI. So you don't know. But because I know that our United States government is lying to us, I would tend to believe that this is probably more likely a concern that industries would have, because once again, if you have no insurance literally, or reassurance that you can deliver a ship all the way through there to its final destination, then more than likely you're not going to take the risk. So I would tend to believe that this is probably reality than what we're being told. And then here's just some more here that is also worth bringing to you. So this here comes from what appears to be a more credible source. And so this is circulating from the New York Times on RT. So let me share this with you. So here's another one. So this is from the Global Insight Journal. It says the New York Times and the New York Post both confirm the deadly strike on U.S. ships is real. And so I'm not sure what ships these are or if they're in the Strait of Hormuz, but it's just a lot of explosions here. Lots of things worth considering. And from the look of this picture here, that looks like a pretty long, vessel there, i.e. carrying something, or that I don't know. So definitely not a military ship, but a U.S. ship that was probably carrying oil and thought that they could be big and bad. If that is a case, then, it's sitting at the bottom of the water right now. So just another little example of things that would concern any person thinking that they can just cruise through there because the U.S. gave permission to do such. Yeah, so there's things you need to be really concerned with. And let me just share a couple other things here. Just the narrative. So here's from Zero Hedge. Narratives come out of the West. Here we have U.S. claims it allows Iranian ships. So that's what I'll start off with. And then Trump says war will end soon. And ultimately saying Trump jawbony oil lower because Brent dropped below $100. And then this is something else that I think is going to become a problem. The increase of consumer prices as we get further along this oil and energy contagion. And so using Trueflation, Anthony Pompliano, one of the individuals that focus on the crypto space, he's been calling for the Fed to cut rates for quite some time now because it was under 1% according to their metrics. And so the fact that it's gone from under 1% CPI figures to 1.5 this morning, this is an indication of the concerns of sticky inflation that never went away. And so he said that even though it's below 2, this is a result of the Iranian conflict centered around energy. So if Trueflation showed less than 1% not long ago, prior to this Iranian conflict, and it's back up to 1.5, just imagine what the true CPI and PCE and all those other metrics that the Fed uses, what they will tell them. And the question is, will they even reflect the idea that they are trending back up? Therefore, the Fed needs to tighten things more or keep things as is, which would basically mean come next Fed meeting, they will not be able to cut interest rates if prices are ticking back upward. And if they do cut rates, that is an outright admission of, basically, to me, I would always consider it a default, because when the world's telling you things are getting more expensive and prices are increasing as a result of that, and they're trying to cut rates to increase the easy money policy, that's how we know that this this mess that we're in is going to be very, very problematic. And everything is lagging, of course. So right now, as we enter into spring, everything will be fully revealed come summertime. And so when I mean fully revealed, I mean very pricey, to say the least. And so that's just something there. Let me give you a little bit more here because it doesn't stop there. Let me give it to you. Let me see. I got all types of things bookmarked. And so some of the other issues, food is going to be a major concern. And so everybody who understands how the byproducts of energy happens to be fertilizer, helium, nitrogen, liquid nitrogen gas, you name it, it's going to impact the crops this spring. And so I've already saw a couple of videos where we had farmers talking about their increased costs for fertilizer already. And so outside of them having some reserves, they don't have enough to get through the entire season itself. So expect the increase in the cost of food itself because all of this is interconnected. So here is a post here that highlights some of that same concern. This is from Charlie Balelo. It says fertilizer prices have moved up to their highest level since October 22. We all know how the CPI figures and the inflation concerns was extremely pressing at that time. It says rising 35% year over year. Says about a third of global fertilizer supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz. It says this will drive food prices higher inflation in the coming weeks and months. And so it shows just basically what we're looking at here. And if you go back out, the last time we saw this was in March of 2022 and back in July of 2008. So these are things that you don't want to play around with. But then again, this current administration is hard pressed to prove a point of some kind. And so we will be we're going to find out the hard way, unfortunately. We're going to find out the hard way because of the Iranian regime and the need to whatever they're trying to sell us out of DC. Yeah, we're going to find out the hard way, unfortunately. Because right now, and even at that video that I showed, as it mentions that if they decided to open up the strait now, there's still going to be some lagging and lingering effects to the decisions that were made, especially as more of the oil mines, and I saw something about some other minerals and stuff like that travels through the strait as they shut down. It's going to really show its rear. It's going to really show its face in the months ahead, and it's going to be problematic. And so, with that being the case, there's also let's look at gold and silver, because gold and silver, they've found a way to contain the actual spot price to make it basically null and void, to where it's crickets in the metal space ultimately for those who were really excited and hyped about it, because everybody's concerned now with the energy situation. So I've noticed just a trend which confirmed the idea that they've been able to contain the price action for now. And while all the other commodities surge, gold and silver has remained somewhat constant. And this right here shows it. So as we can see, when we reach that all-time high, relatively speaking, and current nominal price of 120-ish, since that drop off, and this was pre-Iranian conflict, we got down to, so this on February 2nd, we got down to $77 from that high of 114 according to this, and we've been hovering between 77 and like 80, 84-ish on average. And so literally this line here shows us that we're like really the goal, I would assume, for the bullion banks is to keep the spot price of silver beneath 80. And so if they can keep it beneath 80, they are accomplishing whatever it is that they're trying to achieve, which is to take the hype and a lot of the hope out of the metal right now. And of course, go around 5, below 5 is what they prefer. As long as they're able to achieve that, it keeps attention off of it as a outright safe haven that everybody should be running to. Because with this Iranian oil situation and the jawboning given to us, you're going to see more stuff like this where, Dow, S&P, NASDAQ rise as Wall Street crosses fingers for Hormuz reopening. So the narrative will always be centered around Hormuz reopening. So literally the key buzzword that we will hear more about this week is reopening. Them trying to sell the world that they gave Iran permission to reopen, and Sooner or later we're gonna hear something about negotiations on reopening, and it's all types of crap that we're gonna hear. But as long as the markets reflect a green positive sentiment on a day-to-day basis, this can be a long drawn-out process, while all along prices will continue to increase. So it says Dow bounces 400 points to start the week as oil prices fall back to 95 a barrel. And so all of that, what we're reading from this headline is the result of what was given to us from this headline here of Bessent saying that, they gave Iran permission to begin delivering oil again. So, yeah, more jawboning, more BS being given to the American people, while all along, all you got to do is just look at the cost to sustain yourself. It will continue to trend up. And this is just the environment we're in now, early 2026. And so, once again, the monetary spigot has not been officially cut on yet. And that's going to be the next issue to deal with, because it will be cut on more than likely as a escape valve or a relief for the private credit industry. And so more and more the too big to fail banks are being exposed as being connected to the private credit sector. And so, like I always say before, the monetary system is centered around the too big to fail banks remaining operational. And so our personal finances, our economy, and all that stuff like that comes second or third, because it's all about the too big to fail banks remaining operational. And of course, JP Morgan being the numero uno, they're going to win in the end anyway. So JP Morgan's not going anywhere. They're going to win in the end. And the Federal Reserve will still be operational. Trump is not going to, audit Fort Knox or none of that stuff. I mean, let's just get real. And so last year, I want to share with you something that just came to mind that I would have forgotten to mention, but it has to do with the gold situation that the U.S. is in, and why gold, despite its stagnant price action, is still the most undervalued, along with silver, medium a person can have. So here's from Kobayashi letter, and it talks about the gold reserves. It says U.S. gold reserves have never been this small relative to government debt. It says gold reserves now reflect just 3% of the U.S. federal debt, one of the lowest readings on record. It says, this comes despite the U.S. holding 8,100 metric tons, if you really believe that, the largest stockpile in the world, and prices, right? Once again, take that with a grain of salt. But it says, by comparison, the ratio was 18% in 1980, or 6%, 6 times higher. It says at the same level of reserves, gold price would have to rise 400% to $26,000 an ounce to match the 1980s peak. In reference to, you compare our gold and stockpile and to our national debt, the dollar amount to balance that out. It says, meanwhile, in 1940, gold reserves backed over 50% of the federal debt. It says to match the 1940s ratio, gold would need to surge 1,340% to $75,000 an ounce. It says gold reserves are highlighting just how astronomical the U.S. debt has become. And then here is the visual aid here that is being used as a reference point. And so if you just zoom out, you can see the amount of gold we held compared to the amount, compared to the debt the U.S. had. Literally, our debt has gone so high where it makes our gold reserves literally look insignificant. And so just the price figures here. So going back here, as it says here, $75,000, 51% of gold reserve. And it says 18, so 26,000 back in 1980. And then here we are today. We have way more debt than ever. And the gold price is 4,800-ish or 4,900, whatever it is, when this was done. So basically what this says is, in order for every Federal Reserve note that's in existence now on digits or paper to be accounted for when it comes to a single ounce of gold, the ounce of gold, in order to balance things out or even come partially close to backing any of that, it would have to be 75,000 plus or 50,000. Just making it even 100,000 an ounce for an ounce of gold to try to put things back into some type of equilibrium to where the U.S. could actually service the debt that we have. And you know, and I know, they would never allow that to happen because that would give too much opportunity to the American people who actually own just a gold bracelet to have, $20,000 in a gold bracelet on your wrist is not what they want. And of course, speaking of silver, I'll let you guys guess as to how high silver would need to be in order to balance things out and make it something fair for the holders of silver compared to other debt we have. And that's where we'll never see those figures, I don't think, because they're going to have some backup alternative plans. Of course, it's digital in nature and everything else. And yeah, so I think long-term speaking, as all this unwinds, more chaos is exposed this summer, prices continue to increase. Once they cut on the spigot, the Federal Reserve note will no longer be the global economic store of value that the world has used it for decades. And then again, gold and silver will increase in price substantially, but then there's going to be so much chaos in other areas of life to where, once again, I think outside of those that have been prepared for some type of event, the average Joe and Jane will be so devastated by having lost everything they thought they owned that, once again, it won't be an environment where it'll be comfortable for those who were prepared. So, yeah, that's a possibility of what lies ahead. So we'll see. But in the meantime, love, live, laugh, learn, enjoy today, because today is as calm as it probably can get in the next days ahead. So once again, just pointing out some of the mainstream lies, the U.S. lies, government lies. You can't trust them right now because of all this chaos that they're intentionally causing for, a variety of reasons. But anyway, just checking in, share my 2 cents. As always, if you found value, hit that thumbs up button, show your support for the channel. And if you're new, make sure you subscribe so that you never miss a live stream. And then drop a comment, share your 2 cents if you're watching the replay. Definitely love to get your thoughts and ideas. And feel free to add in the comment section things that you're keeping an eye on or things you want me to touch on next to, add more of a spin on things. But other than that, be blessed, be safe.